Friends, if you create a variable here like a and store a value in it like 10, then you can say that you have stored an integer value inside your this variable. If you create another variable like name and store some string in it like find gap, then we will say that we have stored a data inside our this variable with a type of string. If I declare here another variable like USD rate and store some value in it like 285.43, then we will say that we have stored a floating point value inside our this variable. You can also call this value double. In PHP programming language, the data that we store in our variables contain different data types. PHP have round about 8 data types, and in this video we will discuss them in detail. So hey, what's up guys, welcome to FindGap YouTube channel, and in today's video we are going to learn about data types in PHP. PHP usually contains 8 type of database that I have write in my presentation, and we are going to learn each of them one by one in detail. So first of all, we will learn about string data type. Suppose if I declare a variable here like first name, and you have to type double quotes, or you can write single quotes around your string, and inside this you can write whatever strings you want. Your string may be contain one word or multiple words, and if I echo this here like first name, to see your output in the browser, make sure you have open your XAMPP Apache server, and in my browser I will type here localhost/learn-php and the file name that we have created here, which is datatypes.php. So you can see that our string have printed at this position. If you have two strings in PHP, like if I create another string here, last name is equal to, and if I type here solution, and if you want to add them, you can easily use concatenation method. The concatenation method is, first of all, we will write our first variable at this position, then you will type here a dot, and then you can type single quotes or double quotes. Here I will press a space, and again you have to type here dot, and you can type your second variable name, which is last name. And if you see the output, you can see that we have added both the strings together. If I comment this at this position, you can also use another method. If you type double quotes, you can directly type your variable name here, and I will type here space, and I can type here a string like I have typed is, and then you can type your second variable name, last name, and press semicolon. If I refresh my page, you can see that our string have been added and displayed on our screen. But if you will use single quotes at this position like this, then PHP will never print the value of your variables here. Instead, it will print this as a string at this position. Like if I refresh my page, you can see that PHP have print our variables instead of their values. Next, the question is which type of characters a string can contain. A string can contain alphabets A to Z like this, and it also can contain special characters. And if you type numbers here, PHP will consider this as a string as well. On string values, you cannot implement the numeric functions on your string. Suppose if you have a string like this 7, and if I save this in a variable like a is equal to, and if I declare here another variable like 9, and we know that we have a mathematical operation like a plus b. So let's see what will happen. But before this, I can type here like c. So you can see that PHP is giving me an error because you cannot add both strings like mathematical operations. The next data type we have is integer. So let me remove all this code. Suppose if I declare here a variable like a, and if we store a value in it like 10, so by using this technique, you can store integer values inside your variables. You don't have to write single quotes or double quotes around your these integer. And if I declare here another variable like b and store a value in it like 4, you can declare another variable like c, and you can implement mathematical operations on them. Like star means in programming multiplication. So what will happen? These two numbers will be multiplied with each other, and the answer will be stored in our this c variable, and we can easily print our c variable like this. Let me refresh my page. You can see that we have answer here 40, and similarly you can implement another mathematical operations like divide, minus, plus, and so on. If I open the Google and if I type here PHP integer data type limit, here you can see that PHP can store a value from negative this value to this value. You don't have to remember this. Like we have a value here 10, we can also store a negative value inside an integer, or maybe your value could be 0. 0, and I can type here plus means 0 plus 4. So let's just see the answer. So we have answer of 4. If you will type here 0.4, then PHP will not consider it an integer value. PHP will consider it a floating point value, means double value. The next data type we have is integer. In the Google, I will search here for PHP integer data type. You can see that a PHP integer data type can contain a number from this value to this value. You don't have to remember this. Just you can keep in mind that PHP can store an integer from this value to this. The 0 number is also included in PHP integer data type. The next data type we have is float, or you can also call it double data type. If I create here a variable like a and store a value in it like 2.323, then we can say that this data contains float or double data type. If you want to check data type of any variable, you can use a PHP function like var dump, and inside this you have to pass your variable as a parameter. And if I will refresh my page, you can see that it is telling me that our variable have float data type. The next data type we have is boolean. We often use this data type in our conditional statement. So let me show you through practical. If I will declare here a variable like a, then we can only possibly store two values in it, like true and or you can store a value in it like false. So if any of your variable contain this type of value, true or false, then we can say that we have a boolean data type of this data. We often use these variables in conditional statement. We will learn the conditional statements in detail in our coming tutorials, but currently for practical I will just type here if my variable name, and we can type here echo the value is true, else I will type here the value is false, and make sure to press semicolon in the end. From here I will remove my this variable. Basically this is a conditional statement, and it will check either if the condition that you will pass at this position will be true, then our this echo statement will be printed, otherwise your this echo statement will be printed. So let me show you the output. So here you can see that the value is true. So this block of code is executed because the condition that we were passed at this position was true. But if you will type here false, you can see that our else part is running. In programming, if you have a 0 value, PHP will consider that as a false, but if you have 1 value, PHP will consider that as true. When you will work with databases, we often use this boolean as a data type to store data. Suppose we have a table in which we are storing the record of our customers, and we can use a value of boolean, true or false. Like if a customer is active, then we can assign the value to that customer true, or if a customer is inactive, then we can store a false value at this position. So it is very helpful, and you will also find a lot of uses in programming of this boolean data type. The next data type we have is array data type, which is one of my favorite data type. Let me show you through practical. Basically, first of all, here we have a question that what is array? If I create here a variables like students, and after this you will type a big bracket, single quotes, your first student name like student 1. After this you will press here comma, single quotes, your second student name you can type here, and similarly you can add as much student names as you want inside a single variable. In other words, you can see that arrays are used to store multiple data in single variable. So I will type here like single quotes and student 3, and I will press here semicolon. So basically if I will press here echo and students, you will see PHP will generate error. So let me refresh my page. You can see that it is asking that array to string conversion, because as I discussed earlier, we cannot use echo to print arrays. We have a function in PHP print underscore r, and inside this you can pass your array, and this function will print your array like this. If you want to structure the output, you can easily use a PHP HTML tag, an HTML tag which is a pre tag like this semicolon, and after this you can also type a pre closing tag like this. So now your output will look in a beautified way like this. Now the question is, if you want to access a single value from this, how you will do that? We can easily use this like echo, and I will type my array name which is students. After this you will type a big bracket here, and you know that our first value have an index of 0. Basically arrays contain indexes, and our this value contain an index of 1. So basically if you want to retrieve this value, you will type its index number at this position and press semicolon. And if I will refresh this, you can see that student 2, which is this value, we have retrieved this single value, but this time you can use this echo function. We will learn about arrays in our later tutorials, and it is one of the more important concept in programming, and when you will work on projects, you will find that how important this data type is. The next data type we have is object data type. Basically, to understand this concept, you must have a knowledge of object oriented programming, but I know that you are a beginner and maybe most of the students were not contain the knowledge of object oriented programming, so I will try to explain here, but still if you don't understand, don't worry. When you will learn O means object oriented programming, then you will understand its concept. In PHP we have a classes like class, and I can declare here my class name like this, and classes contain functions. We will also learn about functions in the later tutorials, and simply I can just type here function, and after this I will type my function name. You can declare whatever your function name at this position, and here I will just echo the car is running, and make sure to press semicolon in the end. And a class contain a function like function and underscore construct. This is the default function which will be executed when you create an object of a class. So next question is how you create object of a specific class. Let me show you. First of all, I will type here echo the object is created and press semicolon here. To create an object, you will simply type here obj. You can use any name at this position, whichever you want, like object, car, or whatever you want. But after this you have to use a new keyword, then you have to type your class name, and after this you have to type small brackets and press semicolon. So let me show you what will happen. If I refresh this, you can see that our function is executed, which is printing now the object is created. But if you want to execute a specific function inside a class, we will use object of this class, which is this one, and you can easily do that like this. Obj is equal obj, and type here hyphen and this greater than sign, and then you can easily type here your function name, which is run, like this, and make sure to press semicolon in the end. And if I will run my page, you can see that the car is running, means the code that we have right at this position is executed. Don't worry, you will learn a lot about objects and classes when you will start learning PHP object oriented programming. But in simple words, the object about which we are talking about is this one. And a little bit info is the professional applications that you use in your common days are developed by using object oriented programming technique, because by using this technique your program become manageable. It doesn't matter that how much bigger your program is. The next data type we have is null, and null means nothing. Let me remove my previous code, and I can declare here a variable like a, and I can store a value inside this like find gap and press semicolon. If I will echo this variable like this, PHP will simply print this variable. But suppose if you want to empty this variable, you can type here your variable name and assign a value to this null, and null means nothing. And if I will print here, basically I have to cut this one from here and paste this at this position, and if I refresh, you can see that nothing is print at this position. So you can use a null variable to empty a value from a variable. And also if I type here var dump, which is a PHP function used to check data type of any variable, let me refresh this, you can see that it is showing me that our variable contains null data type. One thing to keep in mind, suppose if we have a variable like this which contains an empty string, and if we have another variable like this which contains null value, these both data types are not the same. So you just have to keep this in mind that these two values are not the same. Next and last data type we have is resource data type. Basically, it is an advanced level concept when you will work with PHP programs, and you will often create a database connection, and when you will store that database connection in a specific variable, then we can say that we have a variable which have a resource data type. And suppose if you are working with files, suppose at this position you have a files, and by using PHP you are opening and closing these files, and we used to store the reference of those files in a variables, then we can say that this variable have a resource data type. It is advanced level data type you will learn more about when you will start building applications in PHP. So friends, I hope you must enjoy this video. If you have any question, you can ask us in the comment section. We will try to answer your question. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel for our regular videos. And finally, thanks for watching.